All right, I want to welcome everybody this morning. We're going to get started here. So my name is Paul Rovianic. I am the chair of the Construction Leadership Council. First, I want to start off by thanking everybody for coming. I know it's an early morning start, but we appreciate it, and we got some great content for you this morning. I'd like to go over some upcoming events that we have coming up this year. We're really excited to talk about those. So we have an Engage event coming up on June 12th. This will be an in-person event, so you should see some emails coming out about that, so stay tuned. We're really excited bringing in a speaker from Hamilton Construction. We also have the AGC Summer Convention coming up on August 7th through the 9th, and that's down in Sun River, so that should be a really good time. We'd encourage everybody to come out to that one. We have a leadership development conference for CLC members and AGC members. So looking to have everybody come out to that. That will be in downtown Vancouver. That is October 18th and 19th. So really excited about that event. We also have the Oregon State Tailgater coming up. Really great event. And that one's going to be in October, and there'll be more information coming out about that. So now that that is out of the way, we have with us this morning Brian Butterfield. He is the co-owner and a master electrician of Green Ridge Solar. It's one of Oregon's 5th fastest growing solar companies and electrical contractor. So we're pretty excited to hear from him. I'm gonna step aside and turn it over to Brian, and we can kick this thing off.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you again to AGC for asking me to come on and speak. It's always kind of funny to be asked to do something like this because people just say, well, just come on and talk about yourself. Right. So at times I think people don't realize that we all might have stories that are really applicable to life and what our career paths look like. So I guess today that's really what I'm going to share with you, kind of overview of what I've done and where we've been at as a company. But ultimately, it's really about kind of the very natural ups and downs that occur for us as people and as entrepreneurs, and as as we progress along in our careers, as what we have going on in life. There's just so much to it. So I'll just dive right in. My background is I grew up here in Oregon. I actually grew up in Sherwood. And I was really had one goal / dream in mind all growing up. I was a huge football fan. I played football competitively my entire life, and I wanted to play in the NFL. That was my dream of what my career was going to look like. So I really dedicated, from the time I was probably 7th grade all the way through high school to really bettering what that might look like for me. At the same time, my dad owned his own company. He's the vice president of a company called Porous Power and Controls, and they were an electrical contractor / controls integrating company, and they had been growing and doing their own thing for years, but growing up, they were in the process of growing their business and learning as entrepreneurs. And so you can imagine the ups and downs that come with that, starting a business, having it have really good high points, having some really low points. But through it all, he was an extremely hard worker, and he really instilled that into myself and my brother. So yeah, football was the number one thing for me. So I set my sights on that, and I pushed through high school, and I had some opportunities when I was graduating high school to play football at the next level, to go into college and play. And that was it was kind of a unique point in my life where I could choose kind of what I wanted to do. There was some smaller schools, college football or in college sports in general, right? You have Division 3, Division 2, Division 1 football. Division 1 being, all the large schools that you can think of, the Oregons, the Oregon States, the, Miami's, the Alabamas, that type of thing. And so I got some offers to go and play football at some smaller schools, but there was only a couple large, Division 1 schools that were maybe interested in me coming to play. And my goal was to try to get a scholarship and get my school paid for to go and play there. Ultimately, I chose to go and take what was called a preferred walk-on spot at the University of Oregon. I essentially didn't get a scholarship, but I got to come in and do everything that all the other kids on scholarship got to do. Come in and start training camp with everyone in the summer. I got to go through the same progression as they did. Unlike some other people who might try out for a team in the middle of a season or something like that. So that was in itself its own kind of unique opportunity. So as I moved from high school, that was the really what I had my sights were set on playing college football, and I knew I was good enough. I thought I was good enough to compete at that level. And sure enough, as I moved into college and trained for the first couple of years and got used to what the speed of football at that level would be at, I then worked really hard and got the opportunity to earn a scholarship. So I got put on scholarship my sophomore year, and I got the last 3 years of my school paid for at the University of Oregon to do that. In the time frame, it was kind of an iconic time period at the University of Oregon. We had a lot of changing of coaches. There was a big change from Mike Bellotti, who was a coach that was kind of historical in Oregon football history. He brought teams to Rose Bowl. The program was kind of up and coming on the national stage at this point, and had some really good national recognition. And that got turned over to Chip Kelly, who kind of really put Oregon on the map with the type of offense that he ran. And so I was there during that time frame. That was from 2006 to 2011. And my senior year, we got the opportunity to play in a national championship against Auburn at the time. Unfortunately, we lost. It was a very close game. But that entire experience was kind of like the first real overcoming of adversity type of situation that I ran into. That I had a really great defensive back coach. I played defensive back, so I played safety, strong safety, corner. I kind of played all of the secondary positions, if you're familiar with football. But in doing so, I had a coach, John Neal, who was really emphasized the work, your work ethic over anything. And it was really the epitome of seeing that that hard work would always beat talent, especially when talent wasn't going to work. You wouldn't believe how many times you would see people come in the door from all over the country, some of the most phenomenal athletes you've ever seen. Like, these guys could go and play in the NFL the next day, kind of thing. And they would wash out of college programs. They wouldn't dedicate themselves. They wouldn't work hard enough. They wouldn't take the time to study and learn what was needed to happen at that level. So seeing this happen kind of firsthand multiple times over the course of the 5 years that I was there, it really opened my eyes to the fact that your desire to work and your desire to put in the time on something that you're passionate about really is what would separate you in the long run. So we lose that national championship game. My whole life, I was just thinking that I was going to go play in the NFL, and I kind of had to step back and take a real good look at what I was able to do. And that was probably about a year prior to that last season. I kind of had recognized that, hey, I was good enough to be where I was at, but probably not going to be in the top 1 or 2% of the people that we compete with nationally to go and do that at the next level. So I started to think about what my life after college would look like, and I had no clue. I graduated. Um, came back home, had some little tiny job offers here and there to go do whatever. But my dad sat me down and he convinced me, he said, hey, just give me a summer, come work with me at my company and see, see what you would, see if you would like being, electrician. So I did that. And at first it was a little bit begrudgingly, just doing it to kind of appease my dad at the time, but I found very quickly that it was something I did enjoy. I enjoyed working with my hands a lot. So I took the opportunity to apply for electrical apprenticeship and got into that the electrical apprenticeship here for Oregon. So as I then started on the next kind of phase of my life, there was working for his company. I really enjoyed the electrical aspect. I learned that trade and kind of built my skill set up, and obviously as life progressed, I ended up, I got married, and I was fortunate enough to kind of save up what I had doing electrical work, and we were able to kind of buy our first starter home. Those were all really great high steps and highlights for me. But at the same time, it was over this course of kind of 6 years working for his company, I always felt that there was a little something missing in what I was doing as far as a career. I enjoyed the work, I enjoyed the people, I worked with a ton, but I didn't quite have all that felt like fulfilling to me as the individual. So in the tail end of my career with his company, I started to get introduced to just general construction and some opportunity to do some house flipping at the time, which was very big. And HGTV got really big at this time as well, so everyone was very much into what was going on in that world. And I enjoyed it. My wife and I had remodeled our own home, kind of really stripped it down, did everything ourselves. And so I stepped my foot into the ring and said, "Hey, let's try to put something together that does that." So we started by just leaving my job. I had saved up some money. It was at the time was maybe not the greatest decision, but we had saved up some money, set it aside, said, hey, I'm going to start this business. I'm going to do something on our own. And through some of my contacts that I had through college and just literally education of my own, how do I go about buying a distressed property? How to go about, renovating it and then getting it back on the market and selling it. We completely self-taught what was going to need to happen there. And we had some success the first couple times that we did it. And I did it on a small scale under my own kind of little company name. And then I had an opportunity to bring on a business partner and who was in the real estate world and knew what was going on from a purchasing standpoint, and then could also help on the back end with the selling of the projects. And this was really exciting for me. I had always felt like the workload was going to be a little bit too much to really do this at a large scale. So having other people to help carry that burden was important to me. So when I brought this business partner on, sure enough, we had the worst thing possible happen, which was we took on our first project and we absolutely killed it. We did so good on it. we made good money. It literally felt like, oh, this is it. This is the kind of the rocket ship that we're going to get on. And unfortunately, that wasn't really the way that it would plan out. It kind of gave us this false sense of security as to what the reality of being a business owner would look like. Excuse me. So that first project we did, I was able to apply a lot of the skills that I was using at the time, right? I had my electrical license as a journeyman electrician. I was able to self-perform a lot of the construction work as we had a construction business and a contracting license. So we did a lot of the sweat equity throughout this whole project and learned how to do kind of every facet of the the residential construction, portion of the projects. So this first project, again, like I said, does very well. And we then decide, okay, we're gonna really take this to the next level. We started looking at, kind of multiple projects, to do multiple projects at one time. And to kind of condense that, we got things really going. We hired a couple people, some project management. We had some additional real estate agents that came in and started working for us as we opened up a real estate brokerage at the same time, to try to take on kind of both the front end and the back end of the entire process. And things were looking up. We got an office. We had put a lot of effort into cleaning that up and making it look really nice and presentable. And we kept pushing forward on these projects. So in a very short time frame, we bought several projects, and it was probably 10 or 12 that we had going on. And things continued to be okay for about 6 more months. And then things started to get difficult. We had a lot overextended there. We were kind of way out over our skis, and it was becoming harder and harder to get the project sold at the values that we were hoping for. And I'm 34, so this was happening all relatively early on in my career. This is happening at 27, 26, 27. And so I think that there was some maturity aspects of what was going on, thinking that we could just, do really well and you could make this great money all of a sudden. And it just wasn't panning out the way that I wanted. But through that all, I knew that the one thing that was going to keep us moving in the right direction was our ability to just kind of pull ourselves up and work through it, right? If we physically did the work, even if something wasn't able to take place, or something fell on its face when it came to another trade or another scope of work, we could always pick it up and take care of it ourselves. It would just cost us time, right? It would just cost us our labor to put that in. So with that mentality, we kind of soldiered on. And at this point, we kind of saw the writing on the wall. We had some projects that weren't performing very well. We had these house flips that were going on that just wasn't really making the type of money that we were hoping for. So we had to make a decision. We saw a opportunity in doing some development type of work where we would buy a piece of property that was oversized. We could get that property kind of parceled off, create a new lot, either sell the piece of land or build a new home on that land, which is really what I ended up kind of gravitating towards, which was building the new homes. So we kind of pivoted a little bit and shifted in that direction, and that we had a good project that kicked us off in the right direction with that as well. But the other kind of remodel projects had gone so poorly that it put the company in a really difficult spot. And we had to make some decisions on if we were going to be able to keep anything that we had going on. And of course, when we had this conversation with our employees, this was probably one of the hardest ones I've ever had to do, was sitting everyone down and saying, hey, because of where we're at, what we have going on, we're just not able to keep everyone. We can't do this. And so my business partner and I, we let everyone go. And we got rid of the office. We got rid of any company vehicles. We did all of that. We kind of shut everything down and collapsed it all. But we still had a good amount of work that had to be done. And at the same time, we took on a larger development project that was, a subdivision. And that was what we thought was going to be kind of the thing that would get us back on the right track. My business partner at this time kind of decided this was too much for him, and he left. He stepped out and he moved on and moved across the country. So I got left, with quite a bit of work sitting in front of me. And with all of the kind of poor performance in the past, there was a very large amount of over leverage and debt that's going on. And in this type of business, right, there's the relationships with not only your contractors, your subcontractors that you're working with, but as well as with investors and slash banks, right, that are helping provide the money to fund something like this. You know, in a project like this subdivision, it was an acreage style subdivision, and it had a handful of lots in it. But you know, it's $1 million to just have the land at the time. Plus then building, you know, every home, another $400,000 to $500,000 for every home when you go to build the home out. So you can imagine several millions of dollars to putting that together. And we had built good relationships with investors and people who had done well with us in the past. But now I'm left at this point where I'm kind of holding all of this. And it was very obvious that I had to take a look in the mirror and say, hey, is this reasonable? Is this going to be feasible for us to even get this done? Yeah. And this was probably, this was definitely the hardest point in my life to date, which was having to face that music to say, hey, we made mistakes, we did things wrong. I didn't have anyone else to be able to kind of lean on at this time to say, other than my wife and my family, to say, hey, what are we going to do? So I spoke with a lot of, you know, mentors and people who are in the industry and asked for some advice. And overwhelmingly, I got the advice of, hey, you know, you're way too far out. You're not going to be able to get this done. I think that you should just close your business and file bankruptcy, right? And that was really difficult to hear. I thought a lot about that and what the implications of that looked like. And ultimately, I chose not to do that. I knew that the relationships that I had built there was several investors who were involved with us that we knew personally. There was relationships beyond just the work that was going on with contractors that I had built over the years, that it wasn't worth it to me to feel like I was burning everyone at that time. And so I made the very conscious decision to stick it out and to say, hey, we got to get the work done. And I'm going to, whatever that takes, I'm going to get through and pay back what's owed. From a number standpoint, it was quite a bit. It felt like there was about $1.8 million worth of debt and projects. And there was a lot of money that had to be paid back. But the work ethic part of me kind of kicked in, and a lot of the stuff that was taught from my father and from playing football and having some great mentors and leaders there growing up, I think it just kind of took over. Extremely stressful 18 months that preceded, which was a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of, you know, physically working all day, paperwork all night. And then really, really difficult conversations with just about everyone that I had to work with, which is, hey, Mr. Investor or Mrs. Investor, I'm in a position here where I have to stop making payments on the loan that you've been able to give. And I'm going to be able to try to recoup a good portion of this to you. But in doing that, you know, it's going to put me further under and further behind if I have to continue to make payments to you at this time. I had to have that conversation with probably 7 or 8 different individuals and some larger institutions. I had to go to several contracting partners and say, hey, I can't pay on these, you know, on the bills until we close out projects as we go. And I think a little bit by the grace from all of these people, that it worked out. People were willing to say, hey, we understand that. We'd much rather wait and take our money, you know, over time than have to force some type of poor situation right now. And so that's exactly what we did. I built out the subdivision. I sold off the other development properties that we had going on, and pushed really hard to get that stuff done. and everyone got paid back. There was a couple key investors that were family, good friends of mine, that were super generous and were willing to take, essentially take less money or put it way on hold and say, hey, I can extend this out for a long period of time, while you get things sorted out. So that all came together, and I still remember to this day the last check I had was to a contracting partner of mine who I had. It was a dirt work contractor. He did all my excavating, utilities, all of that, and he had easily, $1 million worth of work with me across all the projects. And I brought him a check for the last payment, and he was so gracious and willing to like let me pay $2,000 here and $1,500 here. Like it was literally nickeling and diming it all the way down to the end. And I brought him the last check, which was, substantial. I was able to write him like $10,000, I think. And he took me out to lunch. He thanked me, and then he proceeded to give me like just what felt like the best, like glowing review of what had taken place, because he said he'd been in the business a long time. His business has been around for 30 plus years. And he said he's seen a lot of people just step out and just kind of bail on the situation. And sometimes that's what is the only option that you have, right? And I didn't think that I had that option. I felt like I had to push through. And so when doing that, he said, you giving me this check right here and us putting all this behind us 100% makes me believe in your abilities to do what you want to do down the road. And so if there's ever any project that you ever want to do, it doesn't matter the size or what's going on, I'll do it. We'll do it together. And that was really unique for me, because it just showed that at the end of the day, I felt like I did make the right decision by sticking it out and putting in the effort. And I got that response from a lot of people, a lot of investors, a lot of other contractors that said, hey, we see what you went through. We see that you kind of took this all on your own shoulders and wore it. And that was a big turning point for me. It gave me a good boost of confidence, but at the same time was extremely humbling. One of the things I have to put a plug in for here is part of this was a book that I read at the time. There's a book called Extreme Ownership. It's by Jocko Willink, and he's a ex-Navy SEAL, and he writes leadership books that are specific to, that his concept of extreme ownership. And that doesn't mean that you are the one at fault all the time when it comes to extreme ownership, but what it does mean was taking full accountability for the decisions that are made, not only by you, but by your team and the members that you're with. And that's really what I kind of clung to, was that I knew that was a concept I had to apply. It was very easy for someone in the situation to look back and say, okay, well, XYZ people did things wrong, right? Subs or my business partner or my other, employees that put me in this situation. So I shouldn't feel burdened with all of this and have to, stick it out. That book really helped me put this in the right mindset, which was very much a grind. Put your head down and get the work done, because at the end of the day, that's going to be recognized more so than any type of great success that takes place amongst all the projects that we had going on. So that was a big concept for me that stuck and has over the last 15 years of owning it and being taking extreme ownership of what was taking place in my life and what was taking place in my business. So as we cleaned up that project, that company, I was finally able to take a breath, and eventually I did close the company altogether, but I did it the right way. Right, I did it without filing bankruptcy. I did it without having to, really hurt anyone when it came to their investment or their relationships. And I can confidently say now, as I fast forwarded here, a lot of those people that were in that situation with me, I've had opportunities to do other business with down the road, and it's been one of those things that's kind of built the relationship up and gave the trust and the faith in each other to do the work together. that I think otherwise wouldn't have been so successful if we didn't go through that really difficult challenge together. So um, that that kind of came down, but at the same time, I was always kind of having my head on a swivel, looking at what was next on the horizon, knowing that I had to close out these projects and eventually get everyone taken care of and paid back. But what was I going to do next, right? I left what could have been a very lucrative situation for me working for my dad's company. You know, their desire was to, have me potentially, take it over and be in an ownership role with his company. And I it just wasn't for me. I just decided that that wasn't going to be my thing. I had to learn the hard way, I guess, on how to blaze my own trail. Um, and in doing that, I had another opportunity with happened to be one of our real estate agents. She was working with me. Her husband, him and I got to know each other, and he was a pretty sharp guy. He was an entrepreneur mindset guy like myself. He had started his own small business, just a one-man shop, and we had an opportunity to step into the solar market and begin doing some electrical work. Um, this overlapped by about a year with what was going on in the other business, and became at times what I thought was a thorn in my side. I had to feel like I had to give up one or the other. There was several nights where I had the conversation with my wife. Should I, quit doing this little side venture of having an electrical company, to just focus on finishing out what was going on in the construction company, and vice versa. But ultimately, I stuck out both at the same time. And Alex, my business partner to this day, he really put in a lot of effort to help grow what we have today. And our company now is a company called Green Ridge Solar. And Green Ridge is primarily it's an electrical contracting business, and we run it in that sense. But we specialize in doing renewable projects, so solar installation, generators, batteries, all of that type of work. Through the process of getting this business up and going, I had saw that I would obviously need to get my education even further from an electrical standpoint. So I got my master's electrician license, or here in Oregon, it's your electrical signing supervisor license, allows you to be an electrical contractor in the state, and be the one who's pulling and signing for permits in that regard. So I did that at the same time, and the solar company was it started to become our true baby, and what I felt was the real calling in what I had going on in my life. So we kind of circled the wagons, and for the first couple of years, we didn't take hardly anything. My partner and I didn't put ourselves on any type of salary. We had the first 3 years of the company. We didn't do any, we didn't take anything out ever. We just kept pushing back into the company, and we lived very, simple, meaning, simple means when it came to what we needed to take place. And I think that was definitely a testament to my family and my wife's willingness to, trust in what the vision was for what I had and what we had as a company. And even my business partner, Alex, him and his family had to do the same thing. And he stepped away from what was a really lucrative business, a one-man shop that he had started, to see what the vision and what the opportunities were in our company as Green Ridge Solar. So we started that business. Now is coming up on, let's see here, that's getting close to 8 years that we've had Green Ridge Solar now. And it's grown exponentially through, again, lots of ups and downs and struggles as a business owner. But we've got it to a point now where we've got about 40 employees. Company's about $15 million a year is kind of where we do from a business standpoint. And we're in a unique situation that we were able to purchase a piece of commercial real estate a few years back, and we're actually under construction right now, finishing our new headquarters building that we're building over in Sherwood. I say all that just to not necessarily to say, hey, look at me, but just the fact that the overbearing like theme in what I've had going on throughout my entire life was always one of setting these goals, having a passion or a vision for what was going on, and being relentless about what it took to get it done. And that meant several times falling backwards through those times where we had all of the debt and we had really poor work-life balance. I had so much going on. I felt like I didn't have a choice but to just keep pushing. And I think that was a true testament of um, what I had been taught growing up, and learning about how to overcome that type of adversity. And through those types of failures, I think is the only reason why I've been able to have some of the successes now that I've been able to have, is from learning from a lot of those failures. There's so many little things that I took away from some of the poor decisions or lack of knowledge that took place in my other business that helped me lead towards making smarter decisions, moving forward with a new company. I also think that a lot of people would be discouraged about having a business fail or having stuff that really flops on its face, and then be willing to pick back up and do it over again, right? Start something new. So I'd really encourage everyone to not look at those trials or those adversities that you have to overcome as anything other than great learning points for what not to do, as you take the next step. You've probably heard several times over. There's lots of very successful people who have done, had way bigger flops, had multiple businesses fail. I'm on my fifth or seventh business, and then sure enough, one of them kind of takes off, right? And that's what they're able to focus in on, and that's what they become known for. So that's kind of the arc, so to speak, of where I sit. I think being asked to speak about this, I thought, well, why would anyone want to listen? Why would anyone want to understand or know my story? And I think the takeaways from it is I've got a chance to reflect on it, and I've shared it several times with smaller groups of people, and been asked to talk in different fashions. But for me, it's really about understanding the hard work aspect of being a business owner, being attacking your career or your desired rate of success is extremely important. That you're willing to work for what gets put out in front of you and work for your goals that you're trying to achieve. The other thing is a much harder one that I think has to be worked on every day, which is your belief in your self-confidence in your own abilities. Okay, each of us have an ability, or a set of skills or tasks that we can do really well, and we can feel like we can succeed, in not only our careers but in our lives. But at the same time, really focusing in on those and internalizing them to say, hey, I can be the best at these things. And you got to have unwavering confidence in your abilities to perform. Okay. It's much easier said than done. But having good support, sharing your vision with people, sharing what goes on in your daily life, to help you push forward is extremely important. That mindset of extreme ownership, right? Not only taking on what has, the issues that have come up, or the responsibilities that you're taking on, that those are easy when it's your decision or your failure. When it's those that you're in charge of, or people that maybe report to you or that you have to work with, that's where it becomes really hard. This idea of extreme ownership. How can I look at the overall picture, take all of the goods and the bads that have occurred in this situation, in this job, in this project, and really internalize those and say, okay, what can I do to own what has taken place here? What do I need to reteach? What do I need to train on? What do I need to take complete ownership of, or of kind of come clean about? Say, hey, we made the mistake. These are all really important aspects of growing what you see as your potential and your next step in your career or your next step in your business. And then the last thing I would say is I'm just a huge proponent of small business and being an entrepreneur. I think everyone's got a little bit of entrepreneurship um, in their personality and deep inside of them. It's just about being willing and able to take the risk. Um, some people's risk tolerance is extremely high, some is very low. But being willing to be comfortable with whatever that risk level looks like to you and stepping outside of your comfort zone, whether that just means starting with learning new trade, new skill, um, or maybe it's having the guts to stop what you're doing altogether and change career paths and move forward into something that you're passionate about. Overwhelmingly, the extreme ownership, the desire to want to do something more is so important, especially in today's world that we're living in. Our country is really founded on the backs of small businesses that eventually become huge businesses, and so there's nothing that says that those can't be your dreams, your hopes, your new accomplishments and goals. So yeah, that's kind of what I got for time. I wanted to pass it over to Paul, back to you, and see if there's any questions or anything like that.
Brian, that's an incredible story at multiple different levels. So I think I'll probably have to go back and watch the recording again. Because I think there's tons of good information and things in there. So I really appreciate it. I have a couple of questions for you, and
Sure.
for anybody else in the audience that's watching, if you want to send your questions into the Q&A, we can take those now. But since I'm the moderator, I get to start with my own questions. So I guess looking back on kind of your first business, and I guess it didn't go as you planned. Are there maybe a couple different things you said, oh man, if I would have done this differently, it would have been successful? Or, do you pinpoint it to any one thing or two things, or is it just kind of a death by a thousand cuts?
It's probably a combination of all of them, but honestly, the two things that really stick out to me, the first is having a really good grasp and understanding of your financial outlook on your business. Okay, that was something that even when we started Green Ridge, several years into having Green Ridge, we didn't have the most clear picture on what the financials need to look like, right? There was times where we felt like the business was doing well, we felt like we were making money, but it wouldn't reflect at times like, well, how come the bank account is low, or how come we're struggling this month to make the payroll when it was so good the last month, right? So it took us making a very active approach to the financials of the business. One, making sure that we were on top of the accounting, having the right people in place to do that for us, and then also getting outside help from like even someone as like a part-time CFO or someone who can help audit what was going on from a financial standpoint to either reiterate and strengthen your belief in what's taking place in your company, or to help point out where some of those downsides are. Okay, so that was probably the first thing. In that first business, we did not have a great grasp on the financials, right? There was a lot of hidden costs there that were falling through the cracks that weren't ever really shown when it came to just like a profit and loss situation on a project, right? So that would be the first thing. The second thing is honestly having the compatibility of the people around you. It's consistently shows me that if you don't pick the right people to be around you, that you will not have the success that you desire. Okay, you have to have not only compatible but also opposites, complete opposites. Even I would argue right now, my partner Alex, him and I are very different in so many ways. He focuses very much heavy on the technology, on the sales, on the marketing side, right? And I'm very much on the construction of things, the physical installation of what takes place. And because we kind of had these opposite skill sets, that helped really drive us to a much more successful place. I think in the previous relationship that I had with my old business partner and the other business, I think there was too much of us placating each other, too much, yes, we can do this together, yes, yes, yes. instead of having a realistic look at the approach of what needed to happen from a business standpoint. No one was really willing to say no. In that first business, it was always, oh yeah, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. Instead of, hey, slow down. Let's look at this from another viewpoint. Maybe this is not a good decision, right? So those would be the two things.
Yeah, yeah, incredible. Uh, so as you've, I guess, gotten a little older and a little more seasoned, do you find you were saying people are giving you kind of better advice in terms of making decisions when it comes to make a crucial decision? Do you take a little more time now than you did when you were younger or when you
Yeah.
were starting your first business?
Yeah, I think so. I'd be lying to you if I would say that I am still not an extremely risky person. Like, that's in my nature. I really enjoy taking the risk. I like to play blackjack, right? I like to push a little more than what's probably comfortable for most people. I think to a certain degree that that's a really good quality. At the same time, I've shown that it's been not a great quality for the risk, my risk tolerance being so high in the past. Um, so yes, definitely taking more time to make the decision. Um, I also feel like the experiences that I've had have allowed me to make decisions now much quicker and with much more certainty. And so there's been a lot more situations where I've said no, or this doesn't make sense, much faster than I would have in the past. Because it's always easier for me. I'm very much a yes guy. I want to try to make the project happen. I want to say yes to what needs to take place in the next step. Um, so I do take a little bit more time with it for sure. Having a really solid business partner to be able to bounce those ideas off of, making sure that it's part of our business process and strategy, that nothing goes forward without us both signing off on it when it comes to high level decisions. That's really important. Um, and then, yes, we've been able to grow a much larger and let's call it smarter group of people that we've connected with over the years. Um, it's been unique to see where we're at now, because I feel like our business has shifted outside of um, even our parents' business. Right, Alex's dad has a company as well. It's been around for a long time. My dad had a company as long. We would take advice from them, but now we're at a point where our business is kind of outgrown what they've been able to do. So the questions and some of the problems that might arise are not necessarily answerable, but are not really easily answered by those that are immediately around us. So we've had to network outside of that and get a better perspective from those that have been there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. What what's your wife's risk tolerance? She sounds
Uh,
like a great lady and a great support.
she is not risky at all. She hates to gamble. Actually, she had never
Uh,
gambled in her life till she met me. So, but at the same time, I will say this: she is a great judge of character, and she sees what was capable, and her support and what was going on has just been like the greatest thing ever. I 100% attribute the success that we've had now to her ability to support me through the ups and downs. And honestly, we had so many conversations. There was tons of things that she said and pointed out when we had that other business. We're like, you guys, this isn't good. You're not doing this right. This doesn't look right. And sure enough, I ignored it or didn't listen or didn't put in the effort to do that, because I felt like, oh well, you're not necessarily there day to day, so you don't get the full picture. Um, and so she's called me out on that several times in years past. Um, and now I think we're at a point where uh, that advice is definitely still. I don't do the great about taking it sometimes, but I acknowledge that she's had so much more effect on what has taken place here with the success versus having such a rough time years ago.
yeah, yeah, I could imagine. Uh, definitely, definitely tough. Um, so it sounds like through your first business, you had some, I guess you could say failures, right? You were up against the wall, but ended up repaying everybody and kind of coming clean.
Sure.
So it sounds like that has built some really strong relationships. Has that led to even more kind of networking and development in your next business? And kind of, do people build on that?
Yeah. It's kind of funny because the contractor that I spoke of that I got, I gave him that last check and he spoke so highly of the situation. He's become a really, I would consider him somewhat of a mentor to me. I've talked with him quite a bit about all of the ups and downs that have occurred over the years. And now, I mean, we're working together on 3 separate projects. He's doing $1 million worth of scope for us on our commercial building. We're working together on a big job for a Toyota dealership. And so that's just helped kind of foster what has been there. We always make a joke anytime I got to cut him a check, right? He's like, okay, good. This one came through, right? um, but yeah, that's definitely been really good. The opportunity, I think, more than anything, to have extended relationships with some of those people that things fell through on, is really what came out of that. I haven't done any type of large scale investment project since that company, um, but the opportunity to do that, like when we were putting this stuff together for building our new building, it's a large warehouse. It's a fairly good size. It's a fairly high dollar amount project. So in looking at that, like I reached out to some of those people and all of them were like, yeah, we can put something together. We totally do. We can help you out with a construction loan or whatever that looked like. Eventually we ended up not needing to do that because we built such a good relationship with our banking partners here at Greenridge that we're able to do it all, with through the company and with the bank. But the opportunities were there. And so I always have those calls that can be made and kept up on. So there's a handful of them. I have the subcontractors that I work with doing all my flooring and tile work and stuff like that. He's become a really good friend of mine, and we've worked together now for like 7 years on everything, any project that I've ever done outside of Green Ridge, or if I've building my own house, like they always come through on all of that. So
You look back and are thankful that you came so close, I'm guessing, to quitting,
yeah,
and saying, man, I'm glad I didn't, and that those people would, I don't know, hate you is the right word, but they would be pretty upset
sure.
the rest of your life.
Yeah. That's single-handedly that experience, that really like 2-year chunk of my life has really shaped what has happened for the next 9 or 10 moving forward. That was I can't stress enough how like difficult it really was, because it felt I got left on an island, millions of dollars in debt kind of thing, and not feeling like how to handle the situation because you're just so far upside down is what it felt like, right? um and So yes, I think 100% that key experience I've always taken, and I've shared it several times in different settings. um and it's been a huge motivator as to why I do what I do now and how I structure what I do from a business standpoint moving forward. I don't ever want to be in that position again. At the same time, it gives me a lot of confidence to know that if I had something flop, if I had something fail, that there's no failure too big to overcome. It really was that type of situation for me, and it's all relative to your perspective. It could be a small thing, it could be 50,000 or 100,000, it could be 100 million, right? It could be at a different level with that, but it's all relative to the scope of what you were doing at that time frame. And so I think that's been a huge lesson for me, and a great builder for my success and career.
Yeah, it's incredible. Okay, we are out of time and we don't have any more questions coming in. I really appreciate it, Brian. This is an incredible story. For everybody that's on, you will be able to go back and watch this. We will post a link to this. It will be up on YouTube, and that link will be posted on the CLC website. So if you go to AGC, Oregon Columbia Chapter's website, you can get to our website through there. And again, Brian, thank you. Incredible story. Really appreciate you having come on.
No, thank you very much for having me, and I hope someone can take a little nugget and help them out moving forward.
I'm sure. All right. Thanks, everybody, and we will see you at the next Engage event.
All right. Thank you, guys.